Hello my brothers, welcome to the LOP car. I wanted to discuss with you something that I am going through with our 16-year-old daughter. So much of education is about support. So much of education of our children and our grandchildren is about finding the good in that person, the skills that they have, making them feel positive in their self-esteem so that they believe and understand they can do even better. There's so much negative education. You got X amount wrong. Need to get X% to be seen as someone who is achieving. And I speak to you guys as a teacher. Since the age of 14, I was a classroom teacher, and I believe very skilled in that area of my life. And I would always mark a student's exam. You know, people say don't look at the name so that you don't get pulled into the emotions. I always looked at the name of the student because I marked them according to their abilities. And I'm very, very much one that believes in, if you can find the things people are good at or neutral at and embrace those things, grow those things, they get even better at the things they're not so good at. Because so much of achievement in life is about self-esteem, is based on self-esteem and a self-belief system. But I want to talk about the opposite side. I want to talk about challenging our children, pushing them in the areas that they are struggling with desperately, pushing them to think beyond their own boundaries. One of our children, our 16-year-old girl, and as you probably know, people grow up very quickly in Israel. The amount of responsibility that our 16-year-old girl takes upon herself and society puts upon her is so massive. So massive. She's thinking now, a year and a half ahead, what she's going to do in the Israeli Defense Force. At 16 years old, that's what they're talking about. But she goes to a school that we very much agree with much of their mindset. But some of their mindset of the school and of the girls that are attending that school is one-sided. And one would maybe say positively one-sided. They believe in a certain way, specifically around politics and the struggles that we go on in Israel with Arabs and so on and so forth. And she learns in Hebron, it is a very, very intense place. Over 90% of it is Arab. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's a hotbed for terrorism down there. And we chose to send her there. She chose to go there because of the very powerful education, specifically of taking responsibility on their shoulders for the future of our people. At the same time, because it is very, very focused on that one-sided mindset, I find myself entering conversations with our daughter and on purpose taking the opposite mindset, even if I don't fully believe in it. Because I desperately want her to learn to think the other side. Whether it is from a mindset of you need to be open to other people's feelings, you need to be open to other people's belief systems, mindsets, foundations of their life in order to grow in your own life. When you are married, when she's married, please God, she will need to learn to think through why her husband thinks that way or feels that way or acts that way, no matter how opposite it is to her, in order to create peace for herself and in her life. Or maybe I'm doing it, and I think I'm doing it for both sides. Maybe I'm doing it because, as Sun Tzu says, you need to know your enemy and yourself, then there's nothing to fear in battle. If you can think like the other side, if you can understand why and how the other side is thinking, then you'll win. Because you know how to work them, if you understand them. But if you're closed to your own mindset, the way you think and only the way you think, the way you act and only the way you act, well, then you're limiting yourself to understanding your enemy. And this is something that I'm trying to teach her and educate her. But the short-term outcome of that is that she feels that I don't support her in her own belief system. Why are you challenging me, Abba? Why are you challenging me, Dad? You should be proud that I'm thinking this way. You should be happy that I'm thinking this way. You should be happy and strengthen the way that I'm thinking. Which is true, I am. And she knows that I'm proud of her. But at the same time, I will challenge her so that she knows how to deal with challenges. Because you can think something for your entire life. If you've never been challenged on it, you actually do not know if you believe it or not. Like Marcelo asked me about a year ago on the podcast. He says, I think he said something like, how do you know what brings success? And I said, a lack of choice. And then he pushed me on that, and I said, only when a man has looked death in the face, he knows who he truly is. And I believe that. Only once we are pushed truly on our belief systems, whether that's about marriage or peace or politics or religion or health or any business, anything. Only when we are pushed to an extent that we have to ask ourselves, life or death or great loss, am I still willing to stand for this? Then you know who you are. So I am going to push our daughter to think differently. Even if she believes for now, at 16 years old, that I do not believe in her, that I'm not backing her. Although after all the conversations, I say to her, sweetheart, I love you, I'm proud of you, I believe in you, but I want you to think the other way as well. I want you to be challenged. Only when you're challenged are you going to understand that you believe what you believe. And then you can fight even harder for it. Or maybe it'll open your mind to actually thinking differently. Maybe it will find holes in what you are being told. And you'll search for more truth, a greater truth. So my challenge to you, man, and me, is do you do that for your children? But even more so, do you do that for you? Do you challenge your own beliefs? Are you willing to be challenged on your faith? On things that you've been believing for the past 20, 30, 50, 60 years of your life? If not, maybe you're just too afraid to find the other side, another truth. But if you truly believe it, why would you be afraid? Step into all the truths. Step into being challenged, specifically around who we are, how we stand up, lead, and protect. Let's allow ourselves to be challenged. Because you know what? People only run away from challenge when they're afraid of failure. So step into challenge. Allow yourself to be challenged. And you know what? Don't wait for your wife to do it. Don't wait for your children to do it. Let yourself be your greatest challenge.